and cultivate contentment. One can learn to be content. When you think of the idea of depression, the word literally means to be pushed down. So what are you being pushed down below? What is emotional sea level? What's the neutral state? And where should we be? How should we be above that all the time? Should we be below that? I think our moods are supposed to vary. Just as we have cloudy days and sunny days, we're supposed to have positive moods and negative moods. And I don't think the goal is to reject those negative moods or to try to avoid them. That's not natural. I think rather you want to avoid extreme highs or extreme lows. You don't want to get stuck in the lows. If you think of a seesaw and, around the middle point, you want to have gentle excursions. You don't want to have wild swings, and you don't want to get stuck on the bottom. So I would say another characteristic of emotional sea level is resilience, so that resilience and balance, so that if things knock you off balance, you can come back to the center point relatively quickly. So I would ask you to question and watch out for the prevailing cultural idea that we're supposed to be happy all the time. I think that is a toxic thought. In addition, I think in other areas that what I would call mental nutrition. What you take into your mind is as important as what you take into your body. If you consistently watch sad movies and read sad books and listen to sad music, the chances are you will be sadder than if you listen to things that were different. So just be aware of that. I had no idea until I was doing research on the book that there had been actually a body of scientific research on the power of gratitude to affect mood. There's two aspects to this. One is feeling grateful and the other is expressing it, and you got to do both. There's an exercise from positive psychology that I recommend to you if you've never tried this. It's called keeping a gratitude journal. You get a little notebook that you dedicate to this and keep it by your bedside. During the day, make mental notes of things you have to be grateful for. It could be as simple as the sun rising, or with a beautiful blue Arizona sky, or seeing a flower. At night when you get into bed, jot these down. Doing this for 1 week has been shown to boost mood for up to 6 months. I mean, that's remarkable. And there's nothing that stands in the way of that. All you have to do is remember to do it. There's also a very large body of scientific work on the power of forgiveness to affect mood. But forgiveness is tricky. There's a lot that gets in the way of that. So I'm not going to go there. But with gratitude, all you have to do is remember to do it. I mean, I think that's really quite remarkable. Just before I stop, let me just summarize some of the things that I've told you. First of all, I don't think we're supposed to be happy all the time. I think moods are supposed to vary. I'm skeptical of the whole concept of happiness. I think one should be open to the possibility of spontaneous happiness, but what we really should be working for is to be content, as well as to develop emotional resilience and serenity and balance. I think that the depression epidemic in our culture is something we should be taking very seriously. I'm very concerned about the widespread use of these psychiatric drugs, especially in children, and the possibility that, in fact, they may worsen the problems that they're meant to solve. I think the biomedical model and the serotonin hypothesis are very limited in their application. Not to deny the reality of serotonin and brain chemistry, but it's only one factor, and there's so much out there. And this is why we desperately need a new paradigm of mental health that looks at the broader causes and effects of our moods and really looks at these many other ways of doing what we can. There's an awful lot that you can do to improve emotional well-being, starting with being physically active, with eating an anti-inflammatory diet, with taking supplemental fish oil and vitamin D, with attending to your mind, either by working with techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy or even not necessarily in place of that or along with that, but I think it's good for everybody to work to cultivate mindfulness. I think that is a good thing, however you do that. And then to really look at all these other influences on this, of spending more time with positive people. And, I just can't, again, say how simple and easy it is to remember to feel grateful and express gratitude.
It's one thing to kind of understand that, And it's another thing to try to figure out, okay, well, what do we do with this? How are we going to apply this to better our own lives? And what's really great and cool about your work is that that's what you've done. You've created this program where you go to these cities and you basically, like at the highest levels of government and planning, right? Like you're meeting with people and trying to configure a way to literally and systemically change urban planning and the sort of allocation of dollars to funnel in the right direction to promote these habits that are conducive to longevity and optimal health. So, tell me a little bit about that. You were in Kauai. From Instagram, it looked like you spent some time in Kauai.
Yeah.
Is that the most recent one that you worked on?
Well, right now we have the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Hawaii has hired us to Blue Zone, the Big Island of Hawaii, much of Maui.
Oh, Big Island, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and much of Oahu. But just to go back to your earlier comment, I want to make a point. The way most people would cover longevity or centenarians is they find a centenarian and they ask the centenarian what they ate and how they slept and what their habits. And, you find these kind of silly articles about the 100-year-old who ate 3 eggs a day and smoked cigars. They're hugely misleading because a centenarian no more knows how he or she got to live to 100 than a tall man knows how he got to be tall. The right way to do it is you have to find a population that has achieved either highest centenarian rate, highest life expectancy, or lowest rate of middle-age mortality. Once you identify the population, then you can find out what this whole group of people do. Because they're, about 20% of how long you live is dictated by your genes. The other 80% is lifestyle and environment. So if you find a centenarian, it might just be because he or she won the genetic lottery and they can abuse their body for 100 years and still make it to 105. But that doesn't mean they have any useful lessons for us. If you want useful lessons, you have to find whole verified population and reverse engineer. And the big aha, Rich, the big epiphany after almost a decade was places where people are making it to 100 and still water skiing or standing on their head or doing karate. It's not because they tried. It's not because at age 50 they got on a special diet or started taking a supplement or started running marathons. In all cases, longevity happened to these people. It was a residue of the right environment, an environment that nudges them into doing the right things all day long. And
so healthy lifestyle is a byproduct of the environment, not a byproduct of conscious decision making. It's an extrapolation of what's available to you at arm's length. It's the convenient choice as opposed to the more difficult or more expensive choice.
That's right. So you have Herculean discipline. I mean, these ultra marathons that you do that inspire so many people. They are for sure a positive force, but most people, if you look at the research, who start off and start running marathons, they're no longer running marathons in 2 years. People who start off on a diet, no matter how much resolve they have on day one, 90% of them are off of them by the 7th month.
And what do you?
Our minds are hardwired for novelty. So we crave new things. Our attention can last only so long. Discipline is a muscle, and muscles fatigue, and eventually you kind of revert to the mean of what you're doing or the baseline of what you're doing. So if you want that baseline, if you want people to perform better, eat better, move better, socialize better, have more purpose, you need to raise the baseline. You need to optimize the environment, which is
talking points. Like, how do you shift that paradigm?
First, it's focusing on permanent or semi-permanent changes to the environment. And it's going to run out of gas in a year. This lasts for decades.
So is Fort Worth the biggest success story or just the largest urban environment?
It's the largest. The biggest
tackled?
Success story is right here in California, the beach cities of Redondo. But also it turns out in America, if you're in the top quintile of the happiest people, you live about 8 years longer than if you're in the lowest quintile. So working on getting happier is almost as powerful as dropping a smoking habit when it comes to life expectancy. And I sort of developed, I think, this way of identifying the people who do it the best, evidence-based, and then reverse engineering it. So let me interject a nuance here that's important. This is from Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton, both of whom won Nobel Prizes. So they're the ones that figured out that when it comes to money and how you experience your life, you don't get any more gratification or happiness after about $75,000 a year. But when it comes to how you evaluate your life satisfaction, the more money you make, the higher satisfaction is. So actually billionaires, they evaluate their lives better than millionaires. So it just depends what you're after.
Yeah, I guess. It's always been confusing to me that, after a certain point, a millionaire and a billionaire still, are propelling themselves forward to accumulate more and more and more.
People want to know the secret to happiness. And I can't tell you the secret to happiness unless I know who you are. So there are people for whom measuring themselves against other people is a prime value. Mm-hmm. And for them, working to go from $1 million to $1 billion is a good investment for them. Most of us, I think you and me included, we're more interested in really savoring our lives, being present, experiencing it from day to day. It's important for us to feel proud of what we do and achieve financial security, but after that, we're not going to kill ourselves. But there are people who are. There are people that's the name of the game, and they can only be happy if they achieve some fanatic level of success.
Right.